Hey, all you space cats. Welcome to the Black Hole Podcast, Season 7, Episode 33. I'm your host, Mitch Miller, presidential candidate, the most neutral person in the world, the most transparent candidate on the ballot. That's actually not on the ballot, but right in. And I'm a free market entrepreneur. So I talked about how President Joe Biden got out from behind the hate machine, right? The for-profit media of the United States, the three major media conglomerates that are propaganda machines for the corporate communists, and they elicit a lot of hate in the population, keep each other against each other at the working class, middle class level. They keep the illusion that there's two separate parties, the Democrat and Republicans, so that we're at each other's throats to keep us divided. But at the very top, the politicians, the business people, they're all working together as one two-tiered corporate communist regime, and the three media conglomerates are their propaganda machine. So Biden got out from behind this hate machine that says when you run for political office, you have to strategically attack your opponent any way you can, like a military maneuver. We all glorify the military and the strategy, and think that as a leader you have to command a campaign to attack, just like if you were head of the military, right? But maybe you're an elected official and you're saying, how do I get out from behind the hate machine? Well, it's simple. Any elected official, any politician can buy some of my "There's no can't in American" t-shirts, right? They're available. You can see them on my website, mitch4mayor.com. That's Mitch the number 4mayor.com. Under the merch section, they're at the very top. They come in a red shirt, a blue shirt, and a white shirt. They have red, white, and blue wording on them. And these t-shirts, you don't have to. You could contact me to buy 10, buy 100. We have blue shirts for the Democrats, red shirts for the Republicans, and white shirts for the non-communists, right? Buy 10, 100, we can. The theme "No Can in American" can be on the front or the back, however you want it. And we, on the opposite side, front or back, we can put your campaign website or your campaign slogan or your name screen printed on these shirts, right? Buy 10, buy 100, give them away. Use your campaign funds to buy these shirts, and all proceeds, all profit from the sale of these shirts to elected politicians, elected officials, sheriffs, whoever, all proceeds will be go towards building the Periscope platform. This is the ultimate campaign finance reform platform. It is simple. You're a politician. You have a daily or weekly podcast that you post to this platform. You are transparent and post your schedule with who you met with in the previous days and weeks, including lobbyists. And you can put your decisions, the topics that you want to vote on in different bills, up for vote by your constituents. But basically, we can do away with all the attack ads, all the promotions on the mainstream media, and people will just know I can log in to the Periscope platform and hear what the actual politician, their ideas. It should be idea focused like this podcast. You should put out your ideas and programs, not just attack relentlessly any type of shortcoming you can find in your opponent. So that's my proposal. I have these shirts. I designed them. Buy some with your campaign dollars, and the remainder after the initial materials and screen printing costs will go towards building the Periscope platform. Speaking of shirts, we have our correctives out there, right? These independently forming correctives in each city in the United States and possibly the world. So I have a shirt idea for the correctives, the artist correctives that are forming hypothetically. This comes from a previous season. It's my old shirt idea. This is where I go to thrift stores. I buy polo shirts from thrift stores, used shirts, and I embroider on them the words "old shirt" on the chest, right, left chest or right chest, however you want to do it. So everybody in their correctives in their individual cities can go out, scour thrift stores for good deals on polo shirts. You can either send those to me to be embroidered, or you can find a local embroidery shop so you don't have to ship them. And we'll pick a different script of old shirt for each city so that you know where your old shirt came from. So just an idea out there. We can sell these shirts for a pretty standard 50% profit in the garment industry is a pretty standard profit, right? That'll raise money for the correctives, for the artistic movement that I proposed in a previous episode. So I just want a housekeeping. I did go into a cathedral, a temple, a church, a cathedral recently. As I mentioned on the last episode, my neighbor, 92-year-old neighbor Dolly, passed away, and they had a mass for her at the St. Paul's Cathedral in Pittsburgh. I went in there to that mass, and no, I can assure you, no millionaires or billionaires pulled me aside to do their bidding. So, but I just wanted a full disclosure on that. All right, I want to talk a little bit about my schizoid investigation into big tech, big technology. It's the big tech library investigation that I did in 2016. I had multiple investigations going, some findings. I was trying to reach European governments, European politicians, elected officials, because I believe Europe is the most neutral because they have a multi-party system of democracy in most European nations, and they're strong multi-parties, not just two parties dominating necessarily. I was trying to reach these European elected officials to disclose my findings, my investigations. So I went to the Carnegie Main Library because I felt that my home computer network, my home computers, my devices were being monitored by the corporate communists, spied on, my searches could be manipulated, so on and so forth. So I went to the Carnegie Main Library in Pittsburgh, in the Oakland neighborhood of Pittsburgh, and all the computers in this library have three browsers: the Microsoft web browser, the Google web browser, and the Firefox, the Mozilla web browser. So three different companies that offer web browsers. They're available on all the computers. When I found difficulty finding these contacts in Europe, I decided to open my investigation to cross-reference and see what was happening here. So there's web browsers, which are the software that allow you to browse the internet, and then there are search engines that are basically web platforms, internet platforms that you type in search words and they scour the internet to find results. So in the web browser, I would open a different company's search engine. So we'll say in the Google web browser, I would open the Bing or the Microsoft search engine. In the Google web browser, I would open the or did I say already? I opened the Microsoft web browser. I'd open Chrome, the search engine in the Firefox web browser and we'll say the Firefox search engine in the Microsoft web browser, right? And I would go between all of these and search the same thing in each 3 scenarios. And I spent a month spending about an hour or 2 hours a day in this library trying different searches to get the contacts of the elected officials in all 28 or whatever European nations. It took a month. It wasn't an easy search. I'm of an age that I know how to manipulate words. I'm also an author. I know how to manipulate words in a search to get results and come from different angles. I tried many different angles. I tried the words political roster in the language of the country I was searching for. Even when I searched, and the results, so even when I searched the actual word for the government in a nation, like the Bundestag in Germany, the official website of that government would be multiple pages back in the search. I'd have to go 3 or 4 pages of 10, 20 results on each page before I got to the actual official website of these governments. And even then, finding the information that I was looking for was still difficult because not every government publishes on the internet the contact information of their elected officials. So my findings, my belief is that big tech is blocking the poor who use public libraries for internet and schizoids from contacting neutral European governments about investigations of reporting, whistleblowers, things like that. So because of big tech in the United States making it difficult to find these contacts, which would discourage people, I believe they're censoring the population just like China and Russia censors its populations. You might have free information within the United States on any topic that you want, but if you try to reach outside of the United States and find contacts, it becomes very difficult. I believe this is on purpose, that big tech is doing this because they are part of the corporate communist regime. So when I say that there's a corporate communist regime in the United States, I have done the investigations. I'm willing to testify before Congress or whoever. I have my notes. But I haven't been asked by any official any questions, no matter what agencies I've reached out to. So that's why I'm publishing my findings here on this podcast. I know it only reaches a few people, but maybe you can take it and run with it. So I want to close out by talking about a movie pitch. You know me, I'm a film studies bachelor degree holder. I always have movie, TV shows, ideas like my Femme Party novel could be made into a television show, especially with the ideas from this season of the podcast, or a streaming show. So here's the movie pitch. And it has to do with current events, but I thought of this pitch a while ago. I pitched it on my video journal that I keep, that I made. Nippon Steel out of Japan is trying to buy U.S. steel here in the Pittsburgh area, in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Now, I would have been a 4th-generation steelworker. My great-grandfather was a steelworker. My grandfather retired from the Franklin Steel Mill, as I explained, and my father worked at Franklin Steel until they went bankrupt, and he saw all those people lose their pensions and said, I need to get out of this game. But if I would have worked at Franklin Steel, I would have been 4th generation in the same company. What I'm proposing here is a buddy/team comedy about steelworkers, right? So the premise is the United Nations declares the only way to develop nuclear fusion is if China and the United States do it jointly. Right? There's ethics concerns with nuclear fusion, so they put out a mandate that the United States and China must develop it jointly. these two countries get together. They decide to undertake a nuclear fusion steel plant, and choose Braddock, Pennsylvania, which is very close to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. They choose Braddock, Pennsylvania to build or convert the steel plant to fusion. In the agreement, it'll be half Chinese steel workers transplanted from China and half United States steel workers in this plant. So as you can see, the buddy team comedy, the slapstick ensues as these two very different cultures meet working class cultures meet in a steel plant. The story focuses around a shift foreman who happens to be married to an American of Chinese descent. That's why he's focused in on by the company to help with this transition. I would suggest an amateur actor to play the steelworker. Hypothetically, possibly a fourth-generation steelworker, would-be fourth-generation steelworker like myself. And I believe it's an obvious choice from my perspective who would play the wife of the steelworker of the American of Chinese descent. So that's the pitch. I have a lot of ideas if I had a team of writers of how to write this movie. But I believe the only way nuclear fusion should be brought into the mainstream is a joint venture between nations. I've proposed the United States and China. And maybe this Japanese company can foster in this partnership, right? It's very real. I don't know if they'll fund the movie. I welcome Nippon Steel to fund this movie, or at least put forward some of the seed money to develop the screenplay and see where it goes from there. But that's what a lot of my projects are, my movie, my TV. These projects are things that it would be better to do it in real life, right? But they put out these ideas and hope to set precedent and mandates going into the future. So I want to thank you for listening, and until next time, I'll be waiting for those politicians to contact me for T-shirt sales. I can coordinate that. Any correctives that want to need design files for their embroidery, I can coordinate that for the old shirts. And I'm still waiting for people to contact me. Again, you can contact me through the Buzzsprout website, through this podcast. I've enabled messaging through this podcast. So I hope you'll legitimately log your statistics with this podcast so that you're not hiding behind VPNs. Come out into the open like me and stand up to these corporate communists, one click at a time, one listen at a time. Thanks for listening. Until next time, I wish you peace, prosperity, and homeostasis.